Where to begin? One, it's been such a beautiful day so far, and beautiful feels like an understatement. Words fail me at present. Perhaps that's the act of poetry. It's the fine language for the feeling that you feel inside. But there's deep, deep gratitude for this evening. We have a special panel this afternoon. I'm looking at my notes and being like, do I want to go off script or do I want to read it? So I'm debating. I think we are privileged to have two writers today, Southern writers in particular, who have been deeply influenced by Lucille Clifton. As we continue to discuss the Clifton legacy, poets Nikky Finney and Miss Honorée Jeffers join us for a conversation on mother-daughter relationships. Connections and the importance of homes and interior spaces. There's more than just that. Okay. a collective love. We are so grateful here at the Clifton House that we're sort of offering this space of fertile ground for this conversation. I want to sort of introduce both these poets and writers. One you saw yesterday, and one whose voice we've heard over the course of this weekend. Both voices we've heard, but you sort of said a prayer this afternoon, and I'm sort of holding that in my mind. And if I may just offer some praise to you, Ms. Finney. Nikky.
She good with that.
Okay.
I miss Honorée. She just
She
good.
But what I'll say is that, it's going to be in her bio, but Nikky Finney won the National Book Award in 2011. And I bring that up for a reason to say that I listen to that acceptance speech at least once a month.
Oh my God!
And recommend it.
Because I recommend it to you, right? Yeah. So she knows it's true. We listen to it. And it is, again, another sort of prayer. And there was a moment, one of my sort of writer spirits is also Tony K. Bambara. And as you know, Head Off and Split has a note that Tony gave to you, which is, do not leave the arena to the fools. And when I met Nikky Finney, I was a young poet in New York City, just trying to write. But you signed my book, In Truth in Tony K. Bambara. So I go back to that signature over and over and over again. And as you know, that book is also dedicated to Lucille Clifton. So I just want to say thank you for your presence and your being. We also were nourished by Miss Honorée yesterday.
My fourth book is
Your
dedicated
fourth
to
book.
Lucille
And her
Clifton.
fourth book is dedicated to Lucille Clifton.
Everything is dedicated to Lucille
Everything is
Clifton.
dedicated. But I am holding also what you bring to the space, which is a deep love and a deep humor. And I think about Lucille Clifton, the space that she carried as well. So I'm grateful that you bring it to the space as a moment of levity. Anywho, I'm going to do the formal bio, and I'm going to get the hell out of the way for this conversation. So, poet and professor Nikky Finney is the author of 6 books of poetry, including Head Off and Split, which is for sale by Greedy Reads in the classroom, so please purchase it if you don't have it already, and was the 2011 National Book Award won the National Book Award for Poetry. Finney has varying influences. She's a child of activists who came of age during the civil rights and black arts movements, a daughter of the South who illuminates that culture in her writing, and a poet of the tradition of black women claiming space in literature. Head Off and Split was dedicated to Lucille Clifton, and according to Finney, there is no poet whose body of work has made more of an impression on me, whose own poetic breath shaped me. There you go, clap it up. Miss Honorée Jeffers is a poet, essayist, and novelist. She is the author of 5 critically acclaimed books of poetry and the novel The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois, which won the 2022 National Book Critics Circle Award for Fiction. Clap it up. And as I mentioned yesterday, she is currently working on a Lucille Clifton biography to be published by NOF in 2028. We got the date corrected. And yesterday she gave a beautiful lecture. So anywho, welcome them to the stage. Thank you so much.
So, in Joel's introduction, he talks about Sister Nikky's parents and that they were activists. And my parents were also activists. They were community activists. They were cultural activists. And I encountered, although I still don't remember, I do remember something about the hamburger now, but that's about it. The Clifton kids and Miss Lucille and Mr. Fred, because they too were community and cultural activists. And one of the things, and then I want you to sort of talk about this, Sister Nikky. One of the things that I find so interesting is that those of us who are of a particular age, I'd say between the youngest would be late 40s, and then the oldest would be late 60s maybe, is I refer to us as red, black, and green diaper babies, okay? that we were movement babies. And what that means still for our art and for our teaching and how we move in the world and in the Black community. So let's start with you.
So I've known you a long time.
Mm-hmm.
We've never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that. We've never been, we've never done this. And so this is special. And also to do this in this house in front of that portrait
That's right. Yeah.
is all that.
And I wore this dress.
And you
I
wore
was
that
supposed to
dress.
wear another dress.
Oh,
I was supposed to wear another dress.
okay.
But Miss Lucille loved these kind of swirly, flowery things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so
and
you-
I don't know if she used to do this with you. And then we'll get back to what you about to say. But when you saw her, if you didn't instantly give her a compliment, she would say, "I think I'm looking pretty cute. Don't you think I'm looking pretty cute?"
Make you say it.
Make you say it, right? But yes, in this house.
So, first of all, we had a moment when I was called. I want to take one moment to call out Sister Sonia's name, because yes, we can't start. We have to start there because
Right.
the moment that we were going to have here at this house on this day was with a conversation with Sonia Sanchez.
Yeah.
And that got derailed in a way, right? A derailment, but nothing's wrong with where we are. It just went off that track to go to another track. But I want us to keep her in our heads and heart
Yes.
as we talk today because she is there.
Because I have those conversations
Yeah.
with her, and
Right.
she will very casually give you a bibliography while
Yes.
you're talking to her, because we have a history.
It's
with,
all connected.
It's
is
all
what-
with,
it's all
with
connected.
Miss
Yes.
Sonia, as I
Right.
call her, right?
Right.
We have a history. Her son, Mungu, is the one that when I was still mad about the transatlantic slave trade, which I still am, and I was like, I'm not going to Africa for the age of Phyllis, and he urged me to do so. And that's how I ended up in Senegal.
Okay.
So there's all of,
All that.
all of that.
Right,
Right?
right.
Yes.
So I was born in 1957 in Conway, South Carolina, and the only girl with two brothers in the middle, really, of the Black Arts Movement days. I feel like that was coming, and I slid into it very naturally because, and when I call, and I think Honorée would agree with me, my parents didn't see themselves as activists. You know, we use that language now, sort of thinking backwards. I mean, the community was active, was actively trying to change laws and all kind of stuff, but they would never have called themselves activists. They were teachers, and my mom was an elementary school teacher. My father was a young lawyer, but these were just regular folks, right, trying to change this unfair system that we all lived in. And so in that moment, I'm a really shy, quiet, journal book in my back pocket girl of 12 or 13, watching my parents fight, watching my parents make signs that said certain things, right? And so that moment and that community, that black community, segregated. I couldn't go to the Carnegie Library. I couldn't go to certain schools. We were in a Catholic school for 3 or 4 years because that was the school that would take us. So all these unfair things surrounded me as a really, 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 and my mother used to say, oh my God, you are my sensitive child. And it was not a compliment.
Mine too. She would say, you've always been such a strange child.
Yeah, strange, sensitive, you know, those kind of words, because I did feel everything. And so I didn't know what to do with that except write it down. And it was not writing it down, trying to be a poet of my generation or, you know, or win the National Book Award. It was just documentation because I saw the people that I loved fighting with all they had to change this world that was so incredibly unfair. So I wasn't trying to be a poet. I loved poetry. I loved writing. I loved scribbling. I loved documenting. But I wasn't doing that in some sort of equation that would make me who I am today. It did make me that person, right? But I wasn't like aware of that. It wasn't an intentional act, if you will. And so as I finished high school, stayed in the South, went to a black college, Talladega College in Talladega, Alabama.
Talladega, 1989, 1979. That's right.
See, you don't even know the hookup yet.
That's it.
The hookup
That's
is coming.
it. Right.
Her father, Lance Jeffers, was teaching at Talladega College when I got there.
Yeah.
There was no poetry program.
Still ain't.
Still no poetry program. But we had some English teachers that would whip you into shape.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So we won't even talk about what integration did to black school teachers because that would take 3 more days of a
That's
conference.
right. That's a series of conversations.
But those black English teachers lived a long time and stayed in the community and especially stayed at black colleges teaching black school students as we came and matriculated through and taught us all the things we needed to know. I came to know Lucille Clifton at the age of 19 by way of Dr. Gloria Wade Gale's course on
Spelman College.
Absolutely, a course on black women writers. Nobody had taught me anything about black women writers in Sumter, South Carolina. Right. South Carolina doesn't even teach black history in its system and refuses, one of 2 states, this is a sidebar, to anoint a poet laureate of the state. We do not have a poet like this. They just left it. Well, and you know what I'm gonna say.
Right. And I forgot, when I said Spelman College, I forgot that Gloria Wade Gales was first at Talladega, which is how she knew Daddy, and then she moved
as the wife of the president
that's right.
of Talladega.
Dr. Gales.
Gales. So that's how she came into my life, which is why, back to the National Book Award, I thank her because I was sitting on the college wall in my 19th year.
The wall.
And she came up and said, Miss Finney, we can go to a Q party, right? The Q's.
That's right. And night. Drink that Q oil, okay?
And I've done all my work. I got all my papers done, and here comes Dr. Gales. And we sitting there, me and my girls, right? And she says, to me only. To me only. That's another story. Miss Finney, do you have time to sit on this wall? Have you read all the books in the library?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my girls start laughing. Oh, she thinks she read all the books in the library. So it's a moment, it's a crossroads.
It's a moment.
Where I have to say, and I'm gonna let you have it.
No. Keep on going.
I have to make a quick decision.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
I got 5 seconds.
Who you gonna be? Who you gonna be?
Am I gonna sit with my girls?
That's
or
right.
Am I gonna take Dr. Gales's initiative and go into the library?
And you went to the library.
I picked up my stuff at 4:05 p.m. I went into the library. The library closed at 12. When I left the library at 12:01, I could hear my girls partying with the Qs.
Mm-hmm. Because you was a Delta, so they was giving the
Wasn't a
call.
Delta yet.
Oh, you weren't a Delta yet.
But what I did have in me was the understanding of who I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so we are here today to talk about, as the daughters of Black women who forged the way, not the first way, right? They are daughters too of Black women writers, Zora Neale Hurston, and on, who, you know, forged a way for them. And we are the generation, Honorée is 10 years younger than I am, who got some of that and have spent our lives passing that on to our students and to receiving the call, you know, when Sydney calls to say what you need.
Right,
Because
what
we
you
were
need, because when Sydney texted me
Right.
and said, Miss Sonya can't make it, I said, I'll be in conversation with Nikky. That's
Right.
the first thing I said.
Right.
I said, now, y'all may be sick of me by that next day, but if you ain't, you know, I'll be in conversation.
Right.
Because that's
Because
what
what
we
you
do.
need.
What you need.
Right.
What
So-
you need, what this house needs,
Right.
what this community needs,
Right.
what our people need. And it's interesting when you talk about our parents in college themselves activists. We had a term back then, race man, race woman. That was the term, because you were doing it for the race, right? And I remember when my parents, my parents, you know, my daddy would wear the dashiki. My mama would wear the, you know, the long dress. Yeah. The long dress with the African pattern, the Ankara, right?
Yeah.
They would do that. So this is what I'm wearing is very much in honor of Miss Lucille and my mama.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
But it was interesting, and and it's so funny you're talking about this because you haven't read the new book, but this is in the book about my mother was a community.
Which book are you talking about?
Misbehaving at the Crossroads. Oh, look at you! The 7th book, Misbehaving at the Crossroads. So she was a voting rights activist, and she would take me with her. My mother was my best friend when I was a little girl because I was a strange child and I had no friends. So she was my friend. So we kicked it, right? And so she would take me to sign up people to register to vote, right? And she was the one that reminded me of this, that when people were reluctant in the community and they would say things like, they're gonna just do what they wanna do, Mama would nudge me forward and say, tell them who you're voting for, baby. And I'd say, I'm voting for Jimmy Carter. And then they would be like, oh, and then, you know. So I learned very much how to, how to move in a situation. But also when you all see me being bossy, we need this room. That's Trellie Lee James Jeffers, right? And that's also the HBCU experience that when I was at Talladega, same thing. My teachers, I would have, because I was kind of wild back then, right? And I would, be cutting class. And they would shout across the yard, I see you, Miss Jeffers. You were not in class. And my mom was my professor.
Ooh.
So they would threaten to tell her. Okay? But then later I taught for 2 years at Talladega under her. So it's very much like this is what you do in the community, right? But my parents, my father was, you know, a well-known Black Arts Movement poet. And so he would give poetry readings. So if you all remember yesterday when I was like, we need to be passing this hat. We need a collection, you know, box. $1, $2, $3, $5. That's what they would do. They would get together. Mama would make red, black, and green cupcakes. Okay? Chocolate, and then she would put the food coloring, right? And they would always say, you know, black for the people, green for the, you know, something, right?
Right.
And there would be, right. And so they would do that. Okay, all right, somebody been raised, okay? And so they would do that, right? And then they would pass the hat, and they would do that. Those would be the cultural gatherings.
Right.
Okay. But then they would also do things like there was a black child slapped in the recently desegregated, a white teacher slapped a black child, and my mama got that person fired. So they would do these sort of things. And Durham had 25 black millionaires. So it was always interesting because you would see the bougie black people, right? Very fair skin, you know, the fine tooth comb hair. And then they would be mixing with the people from the community. We had these folks, Brother Ralph and Sister T. I remember them. And they were of the people. And so you would have all these different kinds of black folks gathering together. And so that's how I came to black art. And then when I was in college, because I was at an HBCU, we read black writers. And so for me, and I was talking to Sister Nikky about this when we were sort of trying to figure out what were we going to say, you know, blah, blah, blah. For me, what concerns me is the lack of historicity that I'm seeing now, you know, that we need to be getting back to presenting a bibliography, okay? Because, again, the way that Miss Lucille carried herself was just plain folk. And people always forgot that there was a serious intellect that she read. She not only read here, she read across the water, okay? She read the negritudes. She read, you know, she did all of that, right? And I think of myself in the way that I carry myself. I very much pattern myself after her. People sometimes forget there's an intellect here, right? Because my thing is it takes too much energy to be trying to put on airs when I have work to do. I have reading to do, right? So, but yes, I mean, so what I want you to talk about is being the baby in that whole group of black women writers. You were the youngest. Yeah, I remember you with the afro and those piercing, you know, hazel eyes in that photograph. I think you were about 27. I really want to know what, you know, that whole Toni K. Bambara, Toni Morrison, that whole, you know.
Well, it's funny how you see it. This is really interesting to me because I never saw myself a part of that. You know, I was, when I graduated from Talladega, Dr. Gales, who was also not just an incredible professor, but she was also an incredible writer who had her own books of essays and poetry, and who's leaving Spelman this year after teaching at Spelman and Dillard.
Are they going to have a celebration?
No, but that's another story.
We going to have a celebration.
So,
I got 5 on it.
Dr. Gales called Toni Cade Bambara, who I had read for the last 3 years in her class, and said, I got this young sister coming to Atlanta because I had chosen Atlanta University to go to graduate school to study African American literature because of the history that Atlanta University had with Dr. Du Bois and other scholars of Black history, and I wanted to go there. I wanted to be there. And so she called Toni Cade Bambara and said, I'm going to send this sister to your door, and gave me a little 3x5 card with Toni Cade's address and phone number. And I moved to Atlanta, enrolled in school, and took me 6 months to go to Toni Cade's door because I'm like, I can't go to Toni Cade's door. What am I supposed to say? I want to be a poet. I love your work changed. What? I mean, I'm just not that kind of person, right? I just don't want to knock on your door unless I have something to offer. And finally I got to the door and she said, where you been? I've been waiting on you for 6 months. Gloria said you were coming. I said, so what I'm saying to you is like I was handed off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me say that one more time. I was handed off from Dr. Gales to Toni Cade, who had been kicked out of Spelman for teaching the workshop that was too radical.
Because the thing about those HBCUs that very few people talk
Conservative.
about. So conservative. Anti-queer, anti-trans, anti-Black feminist / womanist, which is the same thing. You need to know that. Okay? Right.
So she took her workshop out of Spelman into her house.
Yes.
And this is really important for what we are talking about today. Don't miss this point.
Right.
This is when did I go there? 1980. I went to Toni Cade's house. She had a writing. I never enrolled in a writing workshop in my life. This is also one of the things I share with Miss Lucille. I don't have a degree in writing. I did not go for an MFA in writing. Those English teachers who had me by the ear taught me how to use a verb, how to diagram a sentence, all of those things, right?
And they taught you that the library is free.
The library is free, right? So I go to Toni Cade's house in 1980, and there's 20 people sitting on the floor. Let me hear you, and this is really important, just like this room, where once a month, every first Sunday in the month, we have a writing workshop.
Yeah.
You bring your work to the workshop. It's nurses, it's teachers, it's students who don't know what they want to do, it's bus drivers sitting together reading their work to each other. So I don't come out of a Western framework of what creative writing is. I'm not looking for the intellectual, all that, and a bag of chips. I'm looking at, Miss Lucille taught me the human quality. What's your story?
The human quality while your wondrous intellect is engaging the work, because this goes all the way back to our enslaved ancestors. When Frederick Douglass says, once you learn to read, you will forever be free.
Yes.
Okay?
Right.
So he didn't have a college, right? But he could read.
Right.
And I think that is one of the things that, we learned, right? Not to turn away someone because they don't. You and I, you're still a full professor. I think you're an endowed professor now.
Two endowed professorships.
Two endowed professorships without a graduate degree.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
I was the first black full professor in the history of my department. The first black person to sit in an endowed chair,
Right.
no doctorate.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So this is very much about,
And Miss Lucille talks about this too.
remember when she told a story, she would tell the story, because it still hurt her, I think, about how she overheard these people talking about her at St. Mary's. These white folks. And
she got to publish more. She's got to do this. She's got to do that. But she was on her own.
But not only that, she had accomplished all of this stuff.
Right.
And so what you realize is, for me, listen, I went to an MFA program not truly to learn how to write, but so that I could get the degree so that I could teach to support myself while writing. Because I already knew, that I wanted to be a writer. And so I remember, it's so funny when you were sitting up, and then I want to talk about Miss Lucille and Toni Morrison. And I'm going to publicly tell a story that I've only told in private, okay?
Okay.
Because I think this is a good place. But it was the same thing when I was in grad school. All the white kids after workshop, and by kids, 22, 23, 24, 25, they would all go to this place called the Chucker, which was like, this nasty bar. When you walked in, your shoes would stick to the floor, right? I would be at my house in front of that. You remember them first generation Apple computers? They looked like a little chunky cube, right? And I'd be in front of them. And before that, I would head to the library right after the workshop. Because whatever books, whether they were mostly always by white people, whatever books the professor had mentioned, I was going to the library because I didn't have the money to buy all those books. So I was like, I'm going to rush to the library and get all the books because I knew that they were headed to the Chucker, okay? And so I was going to be here. But what I find really interesting is as we're talking about these circles, it's still about Lucille Clifton because she is right in the middle of these circles. For example, I did not know that Toni Morrison had edited Lucille Clifton until after Miss Lucille transitioned. I was like, what? How did I not know this? This is what we're talking about. We've got to continue to pass this information on. We can't be learning it for the first time in our 40s and our 50s, right? And so what's interesting about this is I remember I had been talking to Miss Lucille. This is not the story, so I just kind of want you to get ready. I've been talking to Miss Lucille about Toni Morrison, blah, blah, blah. And she said, yeah, Toni blah, 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 And I said, you know Toni Morrison? And she said, yeah, honey, I know Toni Morrison. And I was like, how do you know Toni Morrison? And she said, oh, I know her lots of ways. And she just moved on. She didn't make a big deal about it, right? After Miss Lucille passed away, I told this story to Miss Oprah. This is the first person I told this story to. I had a dream. And in the dream, I was driving up one of them little country roads. You from South Carolina, so you know what I'm talking about. One of them little country roads, little narrow country roads. It was on a red dirt road. And in the distance was a church, one of them little clapboard churches deep in the country. And I'm driving up the road, and I see this car coming toward me. And I'm like, there's not enough room for both of us to be. So I start kind of easing half of my car onto the grass so they could ease half their car and we could go. As the car comes towards me and the doors nearly kiss, Miss Lucille is in the driver's seat and Toni Morrison is in the passenger seat. And I say, Miss Lucille, what are you doing here? And she said, Ani. And then I woke up. And that's when I knew I had to finish my novel. I called my mama, and she told me that was a sign. Lucille was trying to tell you. I said, well, what was Toni Morrison doing in the car? She said, what does Toni Morrison do? So there are these black women who are in our waking lives, who are in our dreams, who are in our, surrounding us, right? And I think for me, what has become deeply important about thinking about Lucille Clifton and this cadre, not only of black women, but of black people who are artists, who are activists, who are both, is we are in a needful time now. And those artists came to us as children in a needful time. What for you, Sister Nikky? What do you think that we should be doing with black art right now in this needful time?
Well, one of the things that, the story doesn't end. It's like I stop, Ani jumps in and tells that, and it's all the same story at the different times. But when I was in that workshop with Toni K. Bambara and sitting on the floor at her feet, while she said many things, one of the things was, y'all spending too much time cleaning your house when you should be sitting at your desk. Her house was a mess.
That's why I got me a housekeeper, because I can't keep my house clean for nothing.
She had cups. I love you, Toni. You know I do that. Cups spilling out the sink, food been on plates for a few days. No shame, because she had 50 more pages on her manuscript.
That's it.
She was teaching us what was important.
That's it.
And my mama was teaching me, you got to clean this kitchen up.
Right.
So I'm hearing
right.
a lot. You got a lot of mamas in your life, and I got to clean my dishes. I can't do that. Okay, I just have to. But every time I spend that hour cleaning the house, I do hear Toni K.
You're thinking, I lost pages while I did that.
It hasn't knocked me in the head, but it never left me. And she finished her novel on the Atlanta child murders while we were in that workshop. And Toni Morrison would ring in, because Toni was the editor for Toni K. Bambara at the time. So not only was she working behind as editor, but Toni Morrison was a real human being. She wasn't over there.
Right.
And
Which is so, it's deep that I'm only, and then we're going to get to the deracination. Remember, we were talking about that. It's deep. I didn't really see her as a real person. See, I always saw Miss Lucille as a real person, because I'm going to tell another story I've never told, how she saved my career, okay? I'm not going to dog out nobody black, so don't get scared, okay? I won 2 book prizes, not just the WIC prize. I won another book prize. And about maybe 6 months before I won the WIC prize, and they were messing with me. It was white folks. They was messing with me. And they weren't allowing me any kind of editorial input on my own book. Gilly, do you know what she did? Did she tell? Oh my God! So y'all know this story, okay? And they was messing with me. And the last straw was, my first book of poetry, as you know, is called The Gospel of Barbecue. They wanted to put a barbecue recipe in the back of the book. The Gospel of Barbecue is a metaphor for how our ancestors took the worst parts of everything and made it wonderful. So I'm like, what is happening? They had sent me the $1,000 prize check, and I was real poor back then. It's still a lot of money, but it was a lot of money back in 1999, okay? And even though it was a lot of money and I was poor, I put it in the bank and I didn't touch it, which was odd for me. Run along, I got a call from Maggie Anderson at Kent State University Press, and she said, Lucille Clifton has chosen your book for the WIC Prize. Now I would know, keep all of it to yourself. Don't tell your business to these people. But I was 33, and I was very young, 32, 33. And I said, well, I already won another book prize. You know what? They still hadn't sent me a contract to sign. So they had gone through production, no contract. Okay? I was telling them who I wanted to blurb my book. They were like, we're going to decide who's going to blurb your book. So they had just completely taken it over. So I had told Maggie Anderson, and I'm not going to, but it was weird because she contacted them, which was not, And they said, we have a signed contract with her. You can't publish this book. Because I contacted them and I said, I'm sorry, I'm pulling my book. And I returned the $1,000. They lied to the IRS that I never returned the money, right? So I had to pay taxes on it. So it started to be a hot mess. It was, they were going behind me, which is, tortious interference, but I didn't know that at the time, right? My sister Cece, late sister Cece, was a lawyer. So she told me, she was like, this is tortious interference. They can't do this. But, I was scared. This was my first book. I saw my career passing before my eyes. And Mama said, call Lucille. Because they had given me Miss Lucille's number. And I said, Mama, I can't call this lady. She's famous. She said, call Lucille, because she is somebody's mama and somebody's black mama. Call Lucille. Lucille gonna work it on out, right? And I was like, I don't even know this lady. I called, and when Miss Lucille picked up the phone, I said, hi, this is Honorée Jeffers. And she said, oh, hi, Arnie. And I said, Miss Lucille! And I just started crying, right? Like, because her kindness just kind of, I was just like, she could have just cussed me out or been cold. And I told her the whole story. And she said, oh, it's going to be fine. And I said, but Miss Lucille, da-da-da-da-da. She said, don't worry about it, darling. To this day, I do not know what Lucille Clifton did. But the next thing you know, I had a contract from Kent State University Press. I have never told this story in public. But these are the things, when you're talking about Gloria Wade Gales, you're talking about Toni Capambara, these are the ways that black women, even when they get bass in their voice, or even when they look over us, they guide us. She is responsible, and this is why wherever I am, I will praise the Lord and I will praise Lucille Clifton because I am who I am right now because she saved my career. And that wasn't the only time she saved my career. But I don't talk about black folks by name. I only talk about white folks by name. When they just so you keep on going.
So back to the workshop. So you asked me a question about black art in this time, and I've been teaching in the academy for 36 years. I'm hoping to be out really soon.
You will be.
But what I feel is the future and the now, future and the now, is a place like this. This is Toni K. Bambara's workshop. What she couldn't say at Spelman, she could say in her home. What we keep waiting for some divine intervention when we have everything it takes right now.
We really do.
To do the work that we need for the now and for the future. We think it has to come in a certain looking box with a certain sound and
at
a
the
certain
ballot box
and a tenor, and it's not. It's we have the rugs, we have the lights, we have the lock on the door, which is why a place like this is so essential for now and for the future. Why a place like Furious Flower is the place of now and for the future. Why a place like Cave Canem is the place for now and for the future. And so I've just named 3 places, right? That won't hold all of us. So what's happening in your living room on the first Sunday of July?
Right.
What's happening in your basement in the first, and it doesn't have to be, it won't be my story. It won't be Ani's story, but you will be bringing together creative young people to talk about what is creativity.
That's right.
To make something, you know, they say artists, when you make something, put their hands to work. Let them
Broadside
understand.
Press,
Yeah,
Dudley
You
Randall.
know, we have a history.
Yeah.
We have a history of this, but we are not going to learn this in the university.
Not at
I
all.
keep waiting for them to haul me out of the university with my 2 endowed chairs and show me the door. No, I'm not kidding. I know it's coming.
I left before I could get hauled out.
Ani's gone, but I'm still there, and I'm not waiting for that, you know, because there's too much history and too much to pass on to wait to talk to somebody behind, you know, steel bars or whatever they're going to do. I don't know. I'm not trying to say that, but we have the lessons around us. Do we have the courage? Do we have the attitude that our, you know, mothers and fathers had to say, let's make some art in the yard. Let's put some black tiny fingers in some clay and talk about the creativity and save our children from all of what's coming at them left and right. So when you ask me that, it's not about, you know, I'm not waiting on the Supreme Court of America to save me. I know the power of art, and I know the power of black artists to direct what we need to do next. So
I think that's a great place to end.
are we ending? That's just 30 minutes.
That's 30 minutes. What do you want to do then? You want to talk some more?
Let me just say, I want to bring Lucille Clifton back into this because she said something. I think I'll read it. May I read it? It's in an interview that's very important. I don't even think I wrote the interviewer name down. But if you haven't read the last interview with Lucille Clifton, you need to read that. But
is it Ramika? Is it Ramika?
No,
okay.
No. She said, feeling matters to me a lot in poems because feeling is a thing that transcends culture, transcends race, transcends nationality, geography, theory. She said, my understanding of the atom and the understanding of someone in Timbuktu of the atom are very different. Let me say that again. My understanding of the atom and the understanding of someone in Timbuktu of the atom are very different. but our fears of the atom are the same.
Mm-hmm.
And what good writers do is take you to the feeling. And so if there's anything you are churning about and working on as a young artist, be it in clay, be it cinematography, be it photography, music, be it language, what feeling are you generating out? That's why Miss Lucille is not just beloved by us.
Right.
Those little fist-sized poems are atoms of power about feeling. And Aja was last night, she was like, ooh, I get long-winded. I was like, oh, girl, please. They don't even publish my poems because they're too long. But if you can like condense, compress, and get to the feeling, I mean, Miss Lucille had 6 kids and was doing that in her head all day. Thank you very much. Right? And by the time she got to the typewriter, bam, boom, the feeling had been processed down. And sometimes, I haven't learned that art yet.
Economy.
I
mean, I taught, and then we want to get to the human. I want to get to the human and the blackness and how you don't have to let go of the blackness to be human. That's the one thing that I want to emphasize here. But I also want to say, look at these babies writing in their notebook. It's so nice. I love that because I used to do the same thing.
I still do that.
Yeah. But I used to teach Lucille Clifton's poems to emphasize economy to my students because there is a difference between being verbose, right, which you are not, and having no wasted words. Just because your poems are longer doesn't mean that you have wasted words.
No.
The thing is that, and this is what I tell my students, you can't have fat on a poem, right? You can have fat on your arms, which I'm showing for the first time, right? In an act of, defiance, right? You can, but your poems, you have to excise and that's the thing with Lucille Clifton poems. There's not fat on any Lucille Clifton poem. And the thing is that's why illusion is so important, because what she's doing is she's using the illusions as part of the poem, so that by the time you enter the first line of the poem, right? When we think about that, her most famous poem that Sydney began reciting, won't you celebrate with me, right? Celebration for a black woman is a very rare and precious thing throughout history, which is why I love to see those boots on the ground videos where the sisters are like, right? Because we're claiming that joy, right? But the thing that I love about this interview that you brought up, when she talks about, how these atoms can move, is that there is an idea that let me say this, not within our community, but in mainstream contemporary American literature, right? I think about that Louis Simpson review of Gwendolyn Brooks's Annie Allen that she won the Pulitzer for, and he said something like, she doesn't seem to know how to write about anyone but the Negro.
Well, that sounds like what they said about Morrison.
Remember the Charlie Rose,
Yeah.
and I quote from the Charlie Rose interview where he says, "Are you going, to write about?" And then the other one which is my favorite, with the Australian woman, when Toni Morrison gets that whispery gangster tone, and she sort of looks at her with that like contempt, and the Australian ladies gulps up, you see her throat, because she's like terrified, and not physically terrified, but terrified of the moral clarity, right? But there is this attitude in contemporary American literature, which I see it, dare I say, weaponized against Morrison in fiction and Clifton in poetry, that because they are universal, they have transcended race. Okay? But it is undoubtedly black. It is undoubtedly, and what they are insisting upon is that black people feel these feelings that everybody else feels. And don't take me away from my community. With Miss Lucille in particular, let me invite you in to my community. But it wasn't always honey when she invited people into the community. What she was doing, which, you know, you have done, I have done, is letting people witness conversations that we only have among ourselves, you know. And so that's what I wanted to say.
Yes. This is the last thing I'm gonna read. Please read. Okay. But I learned you have to reread interviews. You have to reread.
Yeah, too.
You gotta, cause you're different, and it's chemical, you know. So I was reading to come to this weekend, and Miss Lucille in this interview was talking about. She won an award at the 92nd Street Y, and it was the first award to really recognize her nationally, right? And she talks, there's this beautiful thing where she says, where she and Fred got real dressed up and drove to New York because it was an occasion, it was a moment for her, right? And she said in that audience was an editor from, I think from Random House, I don't know, Ani, you might know this, and the Random House, who approached her and said, and this is so important to young artists, the editor said, well, what, do you have anything ready to go? And Miss Lucille said, I'm pretty casual about everything else. If you're gonna write something down, you write this down. I'm pretty casual about everything else in my life, but I'm not casual about my work. And I had something to hand to her, and it was her first book. So that editor wasn't over waiting for and letting somebody else come up in that crack. Miss Lucille said, eventually, whether it's the next week or whatever, handed her her first book. And she said this, and she had that's how she published. She was always working on the next book.
Always.
And it was always like on that tram that was coming around, and she wasn't on the internet. Of course, that wasn't, but I'm saying she wasn't out there on the internet doing that kind of, hey, see me? Can you see me? I don't know if you can see me. But
here's my profundity,
but
right?
when she stood to read that night, when she stood to read her work that night, she was heard by people who could put that work into play. And so I have a lot of students who really, and I know you do too, who only thing they want to do is publish.
Yeah.
Slow down. That's my first thing I always say.
You do have to slow down. And when I told that story yesterday about how she said it was coming, it was really interesting because I was that student you're referring to. I was that disgustingly ambitious person I realize now in ways that I'm almost positive Miss Lucille recognized, but she was just, too kind to say, that I was using publication to fill a hole and to heal wounds, right? And then when I moved back from that's when the real work, like I find it really interesting that, I wasn't obsessive about publishing when I published my most, successful next books, because I stayed with the work. I stayed with the work. I remember the last time I talked to her, which I wished I had called her. I really wanted to, but I always felt like I was intruding, because sometimes I just keep her on the phone. I can really talk. And she would say, well, Lonnie, I was writing a little something. And I'd be like, oh, Miss Lucille, let me let you go. I'm not saying nothing. And she's like, that's not true, But the last time I talked to her was when I encountered the name of John Peters, Phyllis Wheatley Peters' husband, on the 1790 census, and realized that white woman had lied about him going further south. And it was, to me, it was a really incredible moment that's the last conversation we had was about Phyllis Wheatley Peters, right? But yes, see, you've always sort of had it in terms of, no. What I mean is, no, because I know you're thinking I'm slobbering you, but in terms of not focusing on the wrong thing, right? Not constantly being about publication. And that may be, I don't want to appropriate, but it may be because you didn't come through the official bureaucracy of creative writing. Now what has happened, and it frightens me a bit, is that so many black writers are coming through that bureaucracy of the MFA program. Thank God your students have somebody like you, right? But when you come through that bureaucracy, it is about the business instead of about the work. I remember Tony Medina saying to me I needed to stop worrying about it, and me thinking he was just foolish. He didn't really know what he was talking about. And now I realize, oh, he really did know. And so what's really interesting is I had to unlearn to learn, and that beacon, that example of Lucille Clifton,
Just going to say, we have to transition to Q&A. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. I think
I
really
went on.
I really wanted to end with that last thing that you said.
Yeah. No, this is great. I just know that the questions are going to spark more, and so I wanted to give the audience an opportunity to sort of, pose questions to you both. So any questions from the folks in the audience? Sorry.
Thank you, first off, for the conversation. And one of my favorite questions to ask folks is, if you had to pair a book with this conversation, you've already invited us to explore the last interview. And folks, I think I asked this question to Raven Johnson, and she said Blessing the Boats was the inspiration for All Dirt Road's Taste of Salt. But is there, if you had to pick a singular title or collection of Lucille Clifton's that you want people to explore when they leave here, what would you recommend?
Well, there's one book that changed my life, and it's Generations. I found Generations.
Oh my God, get out of my head.
I was in New York City. I was 23 years old. I had come out of Gloria Gales's workshop. I found Generations in the bookstore, and I sat on the floor and read it twice. And there's no way I could have written Rice without the permission that Miss Lucille gave me from generations, which I found profound. I went under my mother's bed and took out photographs of people I didn't know. That photograph of my great-great-great-great-grandmother is at the beginning of Rice, Grandma Susan. And so she helped me excavate somebody who I then went around the family asking about. There's no bigger book for me in the oeuvre of Lucille Clifton than Generations.
I would say Generations because of the way that she traces the lineage. And even though it's mainly a matrilineage, there's the daddy. And so...
And she says, my daddy's stories are of his mother.
Right. My daddy's story are of his mother. And so for me, I deal very much with lineage. And I think the other one would be An Ordinary Woman. Because An Ordinary Woman is anything but an ordinary book of poetry. But what it says is that the people that we consider ordinary are extraordinary if we would but listen to their lessons.
Absolutely. I concur.
Yeah. Of all the circles of teachers and women in dreams that you all shared, I just wanted to bring it back to where you began. Where does Sister Sonia fit? Is there a story or anecdote of how she has circulated for either of you, both of you, as teacher, as reader, as mentor, as just someone in community? Yeah, just...
No, I do. I'm just trying not to get too emotional. This is not a personal story. I thought it was until the poet Jericho Brown told me so, because I don't like to share personal conversations. I try to be very respectful. But, we look at her, we look at Miss Sonia as this sort of, thank you, baby, this larger than life person who has always been the person that she's been. And she talked to me about, and I think she had just had the twins, about how the FBI showed up to her house. And she had an Asian American landlord, and they told him to put her out in the street. They had been following her. One of the things, as we're talking about teaching, that you young folks can find out, and maybe even some older folks who don't know this, is that you can find declassified FBI files online of nearly all the Black Arts Movement poets. Okay? My daddy has a declassified file. Lucille Clifton has a declassified file. And so they were, and I always get the pronunciation of this wrong, COINTELPRO, right? They were surveilling these people. And they weren't just surveilling them just to surveil them. They were trying to make it impossible for these people to make a living, for these people to have a place to stay. And she said that her landlord told the FBI that he was not going to put her out. I'm bringing up this story because when she told me this story, it was right when I was talking about I was scared to retire. You get real comfortable when you're making some money. You get real comfortable with, having that good insurance, having that 401k, dressing up in your cute outfit, to go to campus, walking around thinking you sassy because you the one black person surrounded, by these white people. And I thought, This woman was surveilled by the FBI, and she is still here, still writing, still fighting, 90 years old. And I think that that's one of the things when I think about her. You know, sometimes Miss Sonia can get a little bossy, you know, get a little mean, and then she'll come back. This is the thing she always does. She'll come back later and be like, you know, I wasn't trying to be cruel, my dear sister, when I said such and such to you. I just want you to understand. You know, she'll come back around to let you know, I love you. I see you. I believe in you. And so, for me, that's who she's been. She's been this, you know, this little bitty short lady. She say she 4'11". She ain't telling the truth. It's like 4'9", 4'10", you know what I'm saying? But this little bitty lady, and so I was thinking about her. She told that story a couple of times to me. And I was thinking about how she had, you know, how this, and this was before all of this now is happening. And I'm embarrassed to say that when, you know, when the inauguration happened and things started jumping off, I said, I'm too old to get involved in all of this. I'm too old. You know, I'm just going to, you know, stay in the cut. But then I thought, well, if I'm disappeared one day, which is a very distinct possibility at this point, do I want people to remember that I was a coward? Or do I want them to remember what my last words were? Because this is what she's providing for me. So thank you for that question and for allowing me that opportunity.
Yeah, and I think I was 15 in 1972, and the Black Arts movement was critical. I mean, I was reading Black World, Jet, Ebony, any black publications.
Black World is now online in the archives.
And you got a great sense of the sort of difference of black women writers. Nikki Giovanni was the princess of black poetry. Sonia Sanchez was not.
Right.
And it was a reason for that, right? And we don't have to go into that right now, but Mari Evans, Gwendolyn Brooks, Carolyn Rogers was my North Star. Nobody talks about Carolyn Rogers, but when I was writing and I was formulating how to do what I needed to do, Carolyn Rogers was it for me, right? And I didn't even know Lucille Clifton yet because I hadn't gotten to my Dr. Gales, right? So Carolyn Rogers was saying things in low caps and long lines, and she really made she stamped me. And I was able to write an essay about Carolyn Rogers in the Poetry magazine last year called The Last Motherfucker, But it's because of that poem that she wrote that I wrote an essay about. And so there were a lot of different black women poets with different personalities, which teaches us we don't have to be like each other, right? We just have to find our path, be ourselves, and in the spirit of the Clifton girls, hold each other's hand. We don't have to let go because, you know, we're different. They want us to let go of each other, but we don't have to do that. So Sonia Sanchez was fire.
Yes.
She was fire for me in terms of what she was writing in the 1970s. I clearly remember in my journal book saying, I can't write like Sonia Sanchez. I don't want to write like Sonia Sanchez, but I want to bring fire in a kind of lyrical, melodic, that's my voice, right? And so I had to find my voice by listening to Nikki and Mari and Maya and all of those poets who were out on the circuit being a star in the constellation for me. So great question.
Nikki,
Excellent.
I want to just add a note here about Sonia and Lucille. I want you to always remember the joy that they held in their bodies. And so I remember Lucille, the last thing we talked about, because Sonia, Lucille, and I were plotting this, we were going to the casino. Because everybody knew that Lucille Clifton had a special touch. We were on our way to the casino.
Yep. For her birthday. I remember for her birthday.
That's
Yeah.
right. So, we
know
never
that. I'm a
got to do
254.
that casino run. But every time I think about Lucille, I think about this joy that comes out in humor. This is one of the funniest women I ever talked to.
Very much so.
And Joanne, when I was interviewing her for the Cave Canem anthology, the Ringing Ear, Miss Lucille tells the story at the end about going to the hospital. She was like, now I play the numbers. I was like, yeah, I heard that. And she said, I always play 2, 5, 4. And when they took her in the hospital, they took the room number.
Oh, no.
She said, I'm gonna be all right.
She was something else.
But if you look at those videos on YouTube of Sonia and Miss Lucille,
And they were really cool. They
they
were
under-
1 and 2.
there's
one and 2.
What's the Davis? Issa
Davis.
Davis from Cave Canem has a brilliant interview with Lucille Clifton and Sonia Sanchez. And she says this beautiful thing, very poetic, about it's just not what you write, it's like how you walk and how you wear your hair and all this beautiful stuff. And they just up under each other, doing the elbows,
all up underneath. And let me tell you something. At the 1998, when I said that I met Lucille Clifton, Miss Lucille, Sonia Sanchez was there. Miss Lucille read first, I believe. Sonia Sanchez. Hayes, was that? There was Miss Lucille read first. Hayes was a baby then, right? And I meant to tell you yesterday, you look like Mr. Earl. You look like Mr. Earl now, his daddy. Cause I drove back. Was it then? I think it was then, 1996. I drove Hayes and Major. Major didn't give me no damn gas money. And and I still remember it, right? I love Major. I tease him all the time. But in 1998, she read first, and Sonia Sanchez read. It was crazy. You could feel a spirit moving through the room. And Sonia Sanchez, Miss Sonia, channeled the middle passage. You remember that, Hayes? It was, it was. And the two of them together. That's how I first encountered them as an adult. Sonia Sanchez and Miss Lucille. And I think that even though Miss Lucille said she wasn't going to tell Miss Sonia when I would say, she hurt my feelings, Miss Lucille, because then Miss Sonia would come back around and be like, when I said blah, 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 I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. She was there, Miss Sonia was there. When she told me about this when Miss Lucille had the kidney transplant, when Lexi gave the kidney, and she said, I think she was coming off the road or something, and she was like, I was rushing to be there. I was rushing to be there. That kind of black woman friendship is a miracle.
Thank you all so much for this conversation. And it seemed to circle back, as these things do, to Nikki, what you were saying earlier when you preached about where are we getting our definitions from. Because in these past few moments, we have been sort of defining ourselves for ourselves without thinking, because to me, ontologically, white folks and what they think about us is like not a thing that I care about. So could you go back if you would, earlier to what your comments were, and just elaborate a little bit on this idea of definition and defining ourselves, because we've been doing that here this weekend. We have like defined this house in a new way.
Right.
We are bringing definition. So and maybe connecting that to the earlier question of like, what do we do now? What's Black arts now? How might we be thinking about where we get our definitions and how we might be thinking about doing the work of defining in community?
I think you just said it. You know, I just feel like we wait too long for permission to do the thing that we need to do. You know, and I think we don't have time to wait anymore. I mean, there's no time. There's no watch. You have to be in community with somebody, with somebodies, and you have to also close the door and do your work. But there is enough time in your day to do both. And I feel like we don't do that. I feel like we watch too much video of who we're supposed to be,
Right.
and then we are not who we are to each other, right? And so I think, I mean, one of the things that I love is the discipline that Tony K. Bambara taught me about. I mean, I have to say no to things that I really want to do.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say, no, I can't do that. I can't write that. I can't be that, because I'm trying to also create, and I'm a turtle. I'm not a hare. I'm a slow-paced animal. And so honoring that is important. But when I go out there, when I do come out and, you know, then I want to, you know, I just met Aja. Taylor's here. And I want to make that community again, but I'm not naturally the person to get on the phone and talk a long time. I mean, I think Ani and I are really different, and you know, the love that we have for each other and for what we are doing is clear, right? Because we support each other.
But we don't talk.
We don't talk.
So I think the last time I heard from you was when I texted you and told you Mama had passed.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, but here's the thing that a lot of people don't know about me. Yes, I can talk a lot, and I do talk a long time. I talk Sydney to sleep sometimes when you know, but then I go into myself. And my circle, like a lot of the ways that I walk in the world, people just automatically assume, oh, I can be your friend, or oh, whatever. And I always try to be kind, right? But I have a very tiny circle of people that I share myself with. One of the things is, even though I'm online a lot, because once you move into making the money, you know, which is how I was able to pay for my mother's care, you have to sort of, you know, do the online thing, right? But I'm always very careful to tell people, I don't talk about it, I be about it. So this right here is very rare for me. I don't really talk about craft and different things like that, and what poetry means to me, and what, you know, prose means to me, and blah, blah, blah. I don't talk about it, I be about it. Because I see so many young people wasting their most gorgeous lines on trying to impress people on the internet, you know. And I get it. That's how many of us have, because I'm about to say something really serious, and I want you all to pay attention to this. Sooner or later, they're going to cut off the internet. Because that's how so many young people have organized. You need to get people's home addresses. You need to get, you know, people's cell phone numbers with the Signal chat that they can't trace you to, or whatever. That's what you need to be doing, because all of that is gonna disappear soon. We are right at the moment in the American Revolution where there was taxation without representation and British soldiers occupying the street. Do you hear me?
We're going without due process.
We're going without due process, Terry. Exactly. You've got to start connecting face to face with people. Okay? And so this is the thing, and stop sharing everything online about how you want this person not to be here anymore, or you did that. Stop it. Stop it. Because it was informants in all of those movements that helped the FBI track us. But they don't even need informants because the young folks are informing on themselves, okay? So when I'm thinking about Sonia Sanchez, I'm thinking about that too. Like, what were the strategies that were quiet? You know, she's hopefully, I hope, finishing her memoir. She's talked about that, you know. But, I mean, I don't want to scare people, but at the same time, I do feel like, and I don't have a job anymore. So, that's one of the reasons I decided to retire early, because Oklahoma is very, very conservative, and I knew that I couldn't say everything that I wanted to say. While I was teaching there. And I know I've sort of gone off, you know, but I do feel like that needs to be said to our young folk.
Any questions in the back?
Oh.
I hope not.
Joel, I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
You have more of a comment than
Yes,
you have
go
a
ahead.
question.
Well,
That
I have a
always
question and a
happens.
comment. I wanted to ask, like, is it possible for the Lucille Clifton House or family to establish our own reward system? Like, I think one of the things that I think about is what are the ways that we celebrate each other? And it would be beautiful, I don't know if that already exists, but it would be beautiful to have something in her name and in her memory that honors the work that we want to see. Because I think a lot of times we focus on what we don't want to see, or we complain about who's getting the thing that's not even us deciding the metric of our success, or what we think, or how we value and what we perceive value to be. Because if I think about someone like, one of my memories of Sonia Sanchez was the last time I got to spend quality time with her was when we were organizing in South Florida. I invited her and a bunch of the poets from the Black Arts Movement, and had conversations with so many of them who are still alive, but they didn't get the awards. They get invited to the rooms. They aren't in these conversations. They don't live in the New York City or the Chicago or the LA. And so some of those poets, I mean, I think it's like Angela Jackson, Eugene Redmond, like so many of them still exist. And I think about Carolyn Rogers was one of the first poets that like I got to, when I was in Chicago, sit and meet and talk with as a Black woman poet that felt accessible to me, that didn't feel like she was too cool to talk to or too cool to hang out with. You know, she wrote, I still have the piece of paper that she wrote her phone number and said, call me if you need anything. And there is a value system that we have to reestablish that our young people do not have. I mean, I sat with high school students recently. They can barely look you in the face and eye without shivering. There's a certain level, there's the way that social media and the internet has totally warped our connection to each other and how we talk to each other and how we hold space for each other. And so I think what I'm saying is I would love to see something that comes out of this that perhaps can honor what we want to see, what we need to see, because these young people need it, you know? We need to create the thing we want to see. Yeah. I'm down to help, whatever needs to happen to make that happen.
I just wanted to add in the information that there's a Lucille Clifton scholarship.
Right, there's a Lucille,
Yeah.
there's already
There-
stuff in
there is
Lucille
stuff
Clifton's
around.
name.
As I think I went to the workshop, the community of writers under the Lucille Clifton scholarship, so it's out there, and so you look around, and also through Cave Canem, there are lots of, hey Maria, I'm city director, sorry, so yeah, that was all.
Was there somebody in the back, Joanne?
I was gonna check and see. Give me
Right.
1 second. Do you want to answer that word?
I just wanted to throw in, hi. That's true. I just want to throw in J.P. Howard's name in the room because when I was I'm from D.C., grew up there. When I was in New York, hey, I didn't go to New York necessarily by choice. I got a scholarship to study poetry and physics there, and they gave me the most money to go to college. So I ended up there, wanted to go home immediately. But the thing is, I met J.B. Howard, and she had that Women Writers in Bloom space, and that was the thing that made me feel like, okay, I can stay here. And I ended up staying in New York for 10 years and came back here. And I really think that if anyone here is taking your call to action to have a day, have a Sunday, right? Like you're both asking us to do, that's a great place to look at, too. Yeah.
I'm going to go sit next to Sydney because we're going to jointly answer this question.
Right.
And I might even want to stand up and answer the question. So one of the things that's important about the Clifton House and want everyone to understand about the Clifton House is that it's not only this space, but it is a movement.
Right.
So that in the plan, in the long-term plan, part of that is not only giving back, giving forward, but giving backward to the people who brought us here.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want everyone to be very clear that this weekend is a celebration of Mom and her work, and it may feel like, and you're asking for a lot of stuff, but we're also giving a lot of stuff. And I want that to be clear as well, so that we're talking about this existing beyond us and me and everyone in this room, but also acknowledging the people who came before us. And I'm even shouting, he's not asking this, but Baba Henry Gregory, who's back here, who knew my dad back in the day, who showed up. That was a blessing to me. So I just want everyone to understand that what this is and how it is growing. So the quick answer is yes. But I want everyone to understand sort of what the vision is. The vision isn't just about this space. The vision is about the movement and what you have all been talking about. So.
Period. And to also say to Sydney, I see you, Antonia, I'm going to get to you. This is our Sunday, and I think we have folks in this room who have been in our workshops and can speak to the space that we cultivate in here, right? And we have educators, Terry, Zandria, Taylor, right? We had Alia here do a talk. And so I think the return is also a marker of the space that we're building in this room, right? And so I say this is and we're going to continue to have Sundays, right? And so we will gather. This gathering is happening here and not elsewhere. I always say about the Clifton House, there is no stage. So notice that there is no major division between the people sitting or standing and around, and when we disperse from this space, we're in the kitchen talking and laughing, right? We're in the entry, we're on the porch, we're in the back, and it feels sort of level in a way that I think is rare and unique. And so that is the sort of spirit and feeling that I want to cultivate here. And I always say, and I'm sure people who've toured the house with me have heard me say this over and over again, I want people to feel lighter leaving than when they came in, right? And so, and because it's a nourishing place. So, and we're growing. So again, we started in 2019, the pandemic happened. And so that slowed us down, right, a little bit, or paused us in some ways, I should say. And then we're sort of continuing to build and build and build. So the answer is always, as Sydney said, is yes, yes, and yes. And also give us time to mature and grow. And so, yes, so I love all this. So I say yes. Okay, Antonio, sorry.
And also, again, before we start doing new stuff, somebody need to be passing the hat so that we can get them right. You understand what I'm saying? Somebody need to be, that's it. Thank you. So, that's what it's gonna take to continue to do stuff. This is not free, and the reason I'm, with my loud country self saying something about it is the Clifton women are very classy based. So they're not going to sit up and say, we need the money. I ain't classy based. I'm going to say that. But it does. It needs to, continue and this takes, funds, so. Right. Sorry, Joelle. To be right.
No, it was a statement, but it was about support, right? And so you've named part of that. And money absolutely is a necessary thing in the organization, but also it goes beyond the money.
It goes beyond the money. You can bring food. You can bring, you know what I'm saying? You
What-
can,
yeah.
there are all sorts of things that we did in the Black Arts Movement. It's also good words moving forward. That was the thing about Miss Lucille. She didn't write letters of recommendation. She put good words about you in other people's ears so that when they met you, they had heard good things. I first heard about you from Miss Lucille and then found out that you had been at Talladega. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I mean, I think,
Yeah, so
yeah.
yeah, so it's not just about the money.
It's
It is
not-
about
it's not-
collectively as a community.
Yeah.
So I'm at the Valerie J. Maynard Foundation. I've been in conversation with Joelle. You know, how as institutions, right? Because Valerie is very much about the Black Arts Movement, right? Center of that. But that ethos, that pedagogy, that lived experience is something that continues. And so part of what is necessary and I think essential is that it's institutions, organizations, individuals, the ecosystem of people that have been poured into, those who are still here, that how can I support the Clifton House? Right? How can I support Afro Charities? How can I support whatever the institution is? But because the thing that I learned from Valerie is that nobody stood alone. No individual or organization. Right? And so where I may not have a resource in hand, I may know somebody who does to
You may
support.
know some, but that's the same thing with
Right?
me. You know,
Yeah,
I'm
so
not a
that's-
rich person, but
Yeah.
if I meet somebody who's I know has the resources, then I'll begin talking up these, these organizations because, they may want to be, to give money and to give, other things, so yeah.
Okay. I got one final burning question in the front, and then we can close out.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you. I have a question that riffs on your questions, Andrea, about what you were saying earlier about definition. Yeah. And I love what you said about Miss Toni Cade Bambara saying, leave the kitchen, leave the cups, leave the plates, and work on your manuscript. And what you said about your mother saying, no, you must actually clean the kitchen.
Yes.
And so often when we're in community, we have guidance from so many directions. And I'm curious about how you each determine for yourselves when there are multiple bells ringing,
Yes.
which one you listen to. And how that is in of itself perhaps finding your own definition as well.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many lessons from Toni Cade Bambara, right? She was like, count your pages every day. You get 5 pages one day, you get 10 another, and then by the end of the month, how many pages you gonna have? She also told me, so you writing pretty, so what? What else can your work do? What else can you do with your words besides write pretty metaphor? So I'm like a student, I trust her, I go home and I think about that, right? But I gotta take the dishes out my sink because I don't feel good in my house unless my house is clean. So everybody has a different base, and I don't have to take all of it and do everything Toni Cade said or do everything Miss Clifton said. But what fits my spirit? What fits my day? What fits what I'm doing? How is that? These are all motherish, auntie-ish kinds of things, women who have come before me. I want to listen. And some of it I throw out the back door, because it doesn't work for me, right? Toni Cade called me one night at 2 a.m. because somebody in the writing workshop was being abused by her boyfriend. She didn't have a car. She didn't drive. I took my little Volkswagen Rabbit over there, had on my pajamas, didn't know where I was going. I just knew Toni Cade said, can you come get me? And so in that moment, the whole trust that we had been nurturing through writing workshops was beyond words, was like, we need to go get this sister. And we went and got her with her 2 pillowcases full of her belongings, right? And took her back to Toni's house, where she lived for 6 months. What lesson was that for me? You know, a man on the street driving a bus stops me walking Tony to the car 2 weeks later and says, "You that writing woman? You the writing woman?" And I thought, oh, he gonna ask for a signature, sign his book, you know. He said, "My wife and I trying to buy a house. Can you help us fill out the documents?" So who are you as a writer in the community? Are you locked behind your door? You know, too unwilling to help somebody who, like Miss Lucille's father, who could read but not write, you know, progress to the next level. You have to present yourself as being open to more than just adverbs and verbs. That's what Tony Cade taught me. But I also have to clean the dishes out of my sink. I'd like us to end with Nikky's words.
Period. But I want to express my profound gratitude to Nikky and Miss Honorée. I'm going to hold your hand briefly. Thank you for this nourishment. Thank you for holding the stories. We weren't there. I wasn't there, I should say. Some of us younger folk weren't there, but to be able to have these stories now to take with us, these lessons, to find home in those stories, I think is truly, truly, truly important. I don't know any other way or what else to say to express my gratitude, but I am deeply grateful for your time and your graciousness. Thank you. Thank you to all of you in this room. I do want to say that Nikky Finney's books and Miss Jeffers' books are on sale by Greedy Reads in the back, and so that's another way to support them continuously and spend more time with their words and their minds and their brilliance, so please do. We have one more day in celebration. It's tomorrow. It is the final day. It's a performance by Randy Preston. He's going to do some meditative sounds, and also he's going to sing, actually, songs that were Miss Lucille's favorites. And so we welcome you to come as you bid your farewells if you are in town. Just come spend time with us. Sydney, I want to invite you up here as well to see if you have any words in closing for today. I can close it out if you need to.
What's that?
You want me to close it out? Or you good?
You should probably close it out.
Okay.
But I do want to say that this weekend so far, it's not even over, and it has been beyond my wildest dreams, and certainly my mother's. And I feel like the manifestation of Mammy Caroline and the great four mothers who came before us, that we are all their wildest dreams, and beyond my dream here. So the gratitude that I have for the space. Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, please, damn. Yeah.
No,
it took 20 minutes this morning. No, the gratitude, and with all of us here, I'm sort of the way that my mom was, where I take people's children. Maya Angelou said she used to do that. I do the same thing, so everyone here feels like kin to me, all my sistren and brethren and daughtrin and sondrin and various drens. I just have so much love and gratitude. Yeah.
Cheers.
And
Yes.
I would like to bring Miss Sonia back into
Yes.
the room
Bring her
and
in.
say, "A woman, a woman, a woman."
Cheers. Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Yeah, you ended it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Cheers. Have a good afternoon, or evening, I should say, at this point. Thank you so much.